Ready? Okay. So, good morning, everyone. We'll begin with the reflections on universal well-being. May I abide in well-being, in freedom from affliction, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may I maintain well-being in myself. May everyone abide in well-being, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may they maintain well-being in themselves. May all be released from all suffering, and may they not be parted from the good fortune they have attained. When they act upon intention, all beings are the owners of their action, and inherit its results. Their future is born from such action, companion to such action, and its results will be their home. All actions with intention, be they skillful or harmful, such acts, they will be the heirs. So good morning. This is day 3 of our meditation retreat at Berkeley Buddhist Monastery. I thought about reflecting on the topic, what sustains us in our practice? What is our fuel? What is our spiritual fuel as we meditate, do the ceremonies, work in community? And just reflecting on myself, when I first came to the monastery, I had a lot of willpower. I wanted to really cultivate. As I shared 2 days ago, I had this intention of wanting to become a monastic. And so I was really kind of going to do it, right? Going to really meditate. Going to really learn how to get free of suffering and liberate myself. And other people, my parents and so forth, were a little bit like obstacles. They didn't want me to do what I was doing and all these other things. And I just had to really use my willpower to kind of break through and practice. And for sure, I made some headway, you could say. But what I found was that as the days and months and years went by, I became kind of tense and more judgmental. I felt this isn't quite working. And as I observed the senior teachers in DRBA, I really tried to look carefully what motivates them in their practice, what sustains them. And I also looked at some of those early practitioners who left, who maybe were very vigorous in the beginning, but then after a few years, they went their own ways. And one quality I found within the senior teachers that stayed was this sense of filiality. We're going to say gratitude. They had this deep gratitude to their parents and also deep gratitude to their teacher, Master Hua. And so their practice was less about themselves getting enlightened, themselves having some kind of freedom from suffering and comfort, but more about carrying on the profound kindness that they were shown in their lives, and to be able to share that with other people, to really be of service, to carry on what they received so that this can stay in the world. And so as I was reflecting on this, since also 2 days ago we had people write up their intentions, one of the men wrote something that I felt was really right on mark here, and I asked for his permission for reading this, but it's going to be anonymous. People can try to think, who wrote this? But maybe you wrote this. You wrote this in your heart. So here's what he wrote. He wrote, "On my recent visit home, I spent time with my mother, father, and sibling. I was moved by their kindness and goodwill to me. I saw in them deep goodness, but also felt very much their suffering and struggles. I saw how they just want to be happy, at ease, secure, and they wish the same for their loved ones and others. Like all sentient beings, they're trying their best to pursue those things, for better or for worse. The trip home nourished these root relationships, which I realize are extremely important in my life. On the last afternoon of my visit, my mother came over to say goodbye. She must have been tired from working hard to make my visit comfortable and enjoyable, but she showed no sign of it. After a good-spirited chat, it was time for her to leave. We hugged, and she drove off. The time had passed like an instant. In that moment, the human condition, the uncertainty and shortness of our time together in this world, the difficulty of meeting again, and being able to serve and repay those who have given everything for us. This all really hit home. I made a vow to quickly become a Buddha or Bodhisattva in order to be able to truly help, liberate, support my parents of this life and all previous and future lives, no matter where they may be. In this way, we will never actually be separated, and my consciousness would become 100% a force of good for them, endlessly. Of course, my siblings and all the beings I'm intimately connected with, but don't see, or maybe I forgot, are not apart from this vow. In addition, I am finding a wish to also do everything I can to benefit, liberate, and be a source of joy for my family in this life, while the chance is still there. It is with these intentions that I find myself at this time." I thought of also sharing a kind of illustration, also not personally from myself, but from somebody sitting next to me, Jin Shi. This I didn't ask for his permission, but he's already shared this publicly, so I think it's okay to share. Which was, we had our 3-month retreat just right before this meditation retreat. And at the beginning of the retreat, we had a circle where we all wrote memorial plaques for those we cared about. Each of us, Jin Shi, myself, the 4 men in the retreat. And the sense was that we're doing this retreat more than just for ourselves. We're bringing in our web of relations, those we deeply care about. And by bringing those people into the circle and hearing everybody else's person that they care about or beings that they care about, when we're doing this spiritual practice, we're supporting all of them. We're all in this together. So Jin Shi on his plaque wrote his grandmother. And he said, I wish my grandmother well. I also have this feeling that she's near the end of her life, and I wish her a smooth and peaceful transition. And little did he know, about a month and a half later, he got news from his family that his grandmother was in the hospital and later got COVID and was in the COVID ward of a hospital. And he was talking with his family, and they even had him, if I get the story wrong, Jin Wei, you can correct me, had him talk with, I think, one of the doctors or nurses. And she says, I can't tell you her condition because of confidential issues, but let me just tell you, if you want to see your grandmother, you need to get over here soon. Doctor told Jin Wei. Yep, turn on your mic.
In the phone, she says, if you're thinking what is the right time to book your ticket, now is the time to book the ticket.
So Jin Wei talked to me. He says,
pretty direct.
Probably, this is the end. This is the end for my grandmother. And he was asked about going or not. And as our group of on the retreat, since her plaque was in the circle, say she's part of the retreat. Go support her. We'll take care of things here. So he booked a ticket, a couple days, off to Poland. And it's interesting. She's in the COVID ward of a hospital, so usually no visitors, right? Because they don't want to have this be transmitted. So Jin Wei went there not knowing, can I see my grandmother or not? Just with this heart of sincerity, wanting to support his grandma in her final hours in this body. And so when he talked with the hospital staff, they said they'll try to support. I think the robes probably make a difference. They see, a Buddhist monk, probably just not a casual visit, right? And so at one point they tell him, you have permission, you can come, but only 15 minutes. So I don't know how long it took him to suit up, but he had to take all this gear and protective gear, layer after layer, completely covered. He says, it's like being an astronaut, and you go into the COVID ward, and everybody's suited up, and he sees his grandmother. 15 minutes. What does he do? So I don't quite remember exactly the dialogue that Jin Wei had, but what I remember is at one point, he just told his grandmother, let's pray together. And so he put his palms together, and Jin Wei's grandma put her palms together, and just in silence, they were next to one another. And the time was up, and Jin Wei left. And he said the next day, he heard news from the doctor. They asked his grandmother, do you know who visited yesterday? And she said, yes, Marek. That's Jin Wei's lay name, Marek. And we prayed together. And Jin Wei also asked her, Grandma, are you ready to leave? She said, yes, I'm ready to leave. And so Jin Wei only spent a week in Poland and came back. And a few days later, got news that his grandmother passed away, left her body. And he went through some period of grieving as I watched him, because his grandmother was pretty much like his mom in his life, because his mom divorced when he was young, I don't know what, 10 years old. And so he was raised by his grandmother. His mom left the country, came to the U.S. So he was very close to his grandmother, his source of real unconditional care and support. And so he went through this process of grieving, but I can also see he had this deep care for his grandmother. And so that pieway that was on the wall changed from a red pieway to a yellow pieway, from a long life pieway to a rebirth pieway. And now the spiritual retreat was supporting her peaceful transition. And then another, maybe a month passes, and one day I'm sitting in the upstairs kind of Sangha area, and Jin Wei comes over to me and says, I had a dream. of my grandmother. And he was kind of beaming, smiling. And he said, what did you see? And I said, I had a dream of my grandmother. And he said, oh, you had a dream of my grandmother? And he was kind of beaming, smiling. And he said, what did you see? And I said, I had a dream of my grandmother. And he was kind of beaming, smiling. And he said, what did you see? And he says it was a really clear dream. And that was, again, you can correct me if I get it wrong, Jin Wei. Says I was at her funeral. And she came and she approached me. My grandma was there. She told me, I'm happy. I'm okay. I'm very happy. Is that what she said? Yeah, I'm very happy. And then she left. And Jin Wei told me, I feel like she's in a good place. She made it to heaven. Where she wanted to go. She was a devout Catholic. And so I share the story because I think it's a little bit connects with this intention that this layman here wrote, but wanted to be a real service to his parents. And we get to see this story of Jin Wei. You can say this is the quote-unquote fruit of deep intentions that he planted many, many years ago through the retreat up to the present. And I know in his heart he still carries her. As he says, I'm not separate from my grandma. My grandma taught me loving kindness, service, devotion. And so as I walk this spiritual path, she's still there with me every day. So I think that's some powerful spiritual fuel. Right? So we go around our meditation practice. Sometimes it can feel a little dreary, hour after hour, trying to deal with the mind or with the legs being in pain, or maybe the feeling of boredom when we don't have our digital devices to distract us. But if we can tune into something deeper than just the sensory excitement and our own preferences and kind of likings, this kind of deeper currents of kindness and compassion, I think we find something that really sustains us, moment to moment, day by day, year by year, lifetime by lifetime, all the way to Buddhahood. Okay, so maybe if today people can just reflect a little bit about this place of gratitude, I think this can be a real source for spiritual kind of inspiration. Okay, so not much for this morning. Let's do 3 steps, 1 bow. If I got any of the story wrong, Jin Wei, you can correct me tomorrow.
Things I shared.
Yeah,
whole journey
Jin Wei